Call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone here at the council meeting at April 25th, 2023. It's 1 o'clock starting time. I'll read the land acknowledgement right now. We respectfully acknowledge that the township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga Treaty and in the traditional treaty of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Kirk Lake, Hiawatha, Alterville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. The Township of Asphodel-Norwood respectively acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain the responsibilities to ensure the health and integrity for generations to come. I will now invite everyone to pause for a moment of silent reflection to prepare for the council meeting ahead as a gesture of respect and contemplation. I will now ask council members to declare any pecuniary interests in any matters before council to state the interest now or at the time of the matter arising. Seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion to approve today's agenda as circulated. I'll read it off here. Approval of the agenda, recommendation that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood Council meeting agenda for April 25th, 2023 be approved with an addendum to include a closed session, the 2023 tax rate bylaw and renumbering of the confirming bylaw to 2023-23. Moved by Deputy Mayor Burt, second by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That motion's carried. The council minutes of April 11th, 2023, recommendation that the minutes of the regular meeting held April 11th, 2023 be adopted and presented as there was no amendments. I'm looking for a motion to approve the council minutes of April 11th as circulated or amended. Moved by Councillor Ward.
As circulated.
As circulated, seconded, Councillor Walsh. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion's carried. Business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the said minutes at all? None? Okay, we'll move on. On to the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the correspondence for the information items 1 through C. Staff report R1 and 2 and the Trails Committee meeting minutes and Library Board meeting minutes as circulated or amended. Can I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Burt with a comment.
I second that with a comment.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Burt.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to pull C2 and R2 just for commenting discussion.
Okay.
C4, I just had a question to Deputy Mayor Burt about her liaison report.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? That motion's carried.
Just wait for discussion.
Pardon me?
Just wait for the discussion and
Oh,
call.
sorry. I was gonna discuss it up later, which I shouldn't have. Go ahead.
Yeah, this C2, the PCAD business count report. It's interesting. Each year they do it. The numbers seem to make more sense and they're a little bit more meaningful. So I think as they go in, I believe Canvas are doing it again in 2023. I believe they are. So when we see that, I think it's important to promote it out to businesses and farms, because I think the more data and the more information we can get, the bigger picture we get. It's interesting to see, you can almost see the geographical area when you look at the farming. You know, south is, you know, lots of farming. You get to the north and it's a lot of tourism. So it's interesting to see that data starting to come forward. So that was just my comment on that. That hopefully we can promote that out. And then R2 with the Public Works first quarter update, great report. Peter's not here, but excellent report. And I just had a comment on the grader. It's quite frustrating when we send that grader off to get the repairs done and it comes back, those repairs or some maintenance that should have been done, hasn't been done. And anyhow, those things happen, but glad to see it was not too long. It's just my comment. Thank you. That's all I have.
I noticed that the people report, I think it was 51 requirement received.
Which isn't a lot.
No,
It's not a lot, but hopefully.
30%.
30%.
Yeah, I was reading through, Deputy Mayor, the comment around the public health units no longer going to be doing septics. Was that something that we thought was coming? Or was that kind of a new, they're not doing it anymore?
So there's a number of, is there about half of the public health units within the province still do it?
Okay,
Septics fall under building code.
okay,
So a number of municipalities do themselves in the building code and it's not mandated for under public health. So I think they're just looking at getting rid of that. The main health inspectors who will be due to retire.
okay.
And so that could be part of it too. I'm sure there's a number of things going on regarding that. But anyway, it's a good chunk of a timeline at least.
Yeah.
You know, for the township such as ours, to be able to figure something out. And I'm sure Candace can probably speak to it. She's been certainly in conversation with other CAOs within the county, and I'm sure you'll have a plan for us coming forward in the future, I would think.
Because it is
Can speak to
18 months.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good
So
turnover
it's a good
time.
timeline. I just
It is,
was
yeah.
surprised, I guess, in one way, but you're right. Some historical issues, maybe it
Yeah.
would be better to
Yeah.
be in-house, so, yeah.
Yeah, and we, in Asphodel-Norwood, about 20 permits a year are issued for septics. Our current chief building official has all the licensing, is able to start inspecting if we had to as of tomorrow. If need be, but obviously we have 18 months, so there's no concern about whether you'd be able to get other staff up to speed. And with only 20, it's enough, but it's not like, yeah, not crazy, because we're a service municipality, right? So some of the municipalities that are completely unserviced, where they have no water sanitary, that municipally owned, they're gonna see a bigger hit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we've had discussion, we did have the motion made, and was it passed?
All in favor?
All in favor? That motion's carried. Consent agendas. Delegations. We have a delegation with us today, and it's Jake McNeil from the Norwood District High School regarding summer volleyball league. Jake, please proceed with your presentation.
From here. Thank you so much. My name is Jake McNeil. I won't take too much of your time. I know that you're a busy council. However, I want to start off by thanking you for allowing me to just come down the way here from Norwood High School to present something that's near and dear to my heart. And also, I think a benefit to the community. I truly believe so. And I think it's important to also to note that somebody petitioning the council for money is always an odd thing when you have someone coming from out of town. But I wanted to point out that I myself am from a small community from Sturgeon Falls, Ontario, about 5 hours north from here. And Norwood is probably the closest thing to home that I've been able to find in the last 10 years away from home. So I'm invested in the community, but more so I'm invested in the students and the kids that I deal with every day. And I think that after having been here for a few years, I'm starting to notice a couple of trends within the schooling system that may kind of stifle the endeavors that we're trying to do in terms of like money or in terms of access to resources and things like that. And the hope today is to present you an offer that we may likely see eye to eye with. And so I've provided all council members with a package, and you're more than welcome to peruse this at your leisure, but I'll just be using this in terms of maybe keeping myself on pace. At Norwood, involvement, caring, and excellence are what we strive for, and I think that this council would agree that that's also something that we fall in line with. And so I'm hoping that this presentation keeps within those three pillars of what we do at the high school and the intermediate level. And I'll just like to read the mission statement for this program for you all today. The purpose of the Knights Volleyball Club is to provide students ages 13 to 18 from Asphodel-Norwood the opportunity to engage in affordable summer athletic opportunities, otherwise only offered in larger city centers like Peterborough. More specifically, the monies collected from this endeavor will be used to offset NDIHS student athletic costs in the next academic year, such as busing, equipment, or registration costs. Additionally, the program will help highlight the school's athletic programs while allowing NDIHS to remain competitive against the neighboring schools, such as Holy Cross or TAS. The goal is to have students remain in the township of Asphodel-Norwood to volunteer, to learn, and to play. On the next page, you will see the team that I've been able to kind of get together. Now, this is a volunteer-based program. It is a not-for-profit. We're not looking to seek any profit from this endeavor. We are just simply trying to service the community members. So we have myself, my wife, who's not featured here, but Carolyn Anderson, Connor Jones, and Todd Murray, who are also on board for this program. The idea is that during the summer months, for an 8-week period, roughly, students will be allowed to play in the Norwood Volleyball Club during the summer at the school, both on the beach courts as well as in the indoor facilities at our school. We hope that when the players join the NVBC or the volleyball club, that they will then continue to play within the regular season at our school, and then to volunteer their time back to the community members who are coming in the following summers, and that students can continue to collect volunteer hours by engaging within the community. So our caring, our involvement piece is that giving back to the community is an integral kind of pillar to what this program in our minds should be able to do. There's also some academic potential that I think is important to bring forward. If players join this volleyball club that they're able to have access to in the summers, the idea is that they're already in touch with, specifically with intermediate students coming in, that they're in touch with the high school staff or the intermediate staff, that they see those friendly faces and that they can recognize those people within the school. So it builds a sense of community within that program. And more specifically, offering opportunities that I'll later touch on in this this pitch, if you will, about keeping students in-house, keeping them in Asphodel-Norwood. And so choosing to remain competitive against Holy Cross and TAS specifically, who offer a lot of athletic opportunities that are otherwise difficult for our students to achieve, given some of the socioeconomics that we deal with at the school level. I've also included a picture on one of our next slides of the current team, and the impetus starts with this picture, which I took when our senior girls, for the first time in recent history, were able to make it to the CASA championships and almost win. There was a lot of conversation about how I can't believe Norwood beat us. I can't believe that happened. Where are they coming from? And I thought, well, if that's not an impetus to start something here, I don't know what is. And the joy on their faces and the tears, the happy tears that are being cried here as a senior student, you know, hits the ball for the last time before her graduation was kind of what sparked this. The facilities, I've done some legwork, and the facilities are being offered for free from the school. There is no rental cost for these facilities. The facilities, both the outdoor court and the indoor gym, custodial staff has been set up, insurance has been set up. There is absolutely no fee. It's very much of a let's start to play. So we're very grateful for that, for the school board to meet us on those fronts. In terms of the volleyball club itself and how it operates, I think it's important to note that we are going to try to keep this as focused to the school as possible, and then have also some tie-ins with your local organizations, such as the Choose Local Instagram or social media platforms, to kind of deliver messaging throughout our community. Participants will be able to register through regular means like Google Forms, and any updates will come through our Norwood Intermediate and Norwood Secondary websites. And the idea for that is to have more foot traffic onto those websites, have more foot traffic onto our social media sites, including the Asphodel-Norwood sites, so that students are actively engaging on those platforms, and then hopefully by proxy allowing them to see other endeavors that are being forged in the community, and being able to take advantage of those. So registration will happen through that. But I think we all want to know and talk about money, right? And so I have, on the next slide, I've left you my personal, let's say, bill for an 8-week volleyball season. This happens to be in the winter, but the fees are the same for the summer, and it's roughly around $785.35. The idea for Norwood is to not have students have to drive out to Peterborough in order to pay these fees, not to mention gas, time for parents, and all those things. Our idea is to charge our students $210 per team, or $35 a player for the entire summer. That is $575.35 in savings compared to our most recent neighbors for athletic costs, or clubs rather. Now, because this is a not-for-profit, this goes directly back to the school. In the next slide, I'm showing you a breakdown of our current cost for our season, our 2022-2023 season. At $100, which we charged per student at 19 students who were part of the program or had made the team, I should say, plus $600 of additional busing fees, our season cost us roughly, and this is a rough number, $2,500 for the season. And so with the funds raised at 6 teams, which is 36 students, we can offset that cost and make it $65.26 for individual student registrations. I hope and I foresee that volleyball is a big draw at our school, and the numbers suggest that we can have more than 6 teams, which means that we have the potential to break our athletic costs even. Where this becomes maybe a thing to highlight is that other schools such as Holy Cross and Peterborough are within the city and don't have the busing fees that we have at our small school. And so allowing or offsetting those costs can increase the amount of participants and not put pressure on Asphodel-Norwood families to pay that heavy toll for a student who wants to play a sport that involves a net, a court, and a ball. And so the flow of money I've also highlighted for you in my presentation here, which is the monies will be collected by the NVBC or the volleyball club and held at Norwood specifically, which means no volunteer comes into contact with that money. It's held within the coffers at the school. That money is then directly placed back into the athletic coffers in the school. And then that money from those coffers is then used to pay for equipment, fees, or in some cases, even the students or teachers pay students fund that we have to help low socioeconomic students to meet the demands of that payment. So the idea is that no money will be held by any of the volunteers, but will be held by the school. The lovely thing about working within the school limits is that those coffers need to hit 0 every year. There cannot be any money held over year to year, which means that it places a priority on our club to invest that money back into our students within the academic year. And so hopefully by being able to sustain itself, we know that that money kind of goes into our students and our families and then stays there. Today, I'm petitioning you for some money, and I know that the council has already set limits of $500 roughly per application. And I understand that to be the case. My hope today is to provide you with an accurate number and allow you to have a conversation about the benefits of having this program run for our students. Between equipment such as balls, the replacement of nets, the antenna system, as well as any adjustable limits for boundaries, including a quote for sand, specifically for the beach volleyball courts. Our initial startup fee is roughly $1,500. And that is the petition that I'm trying to make today. $1,500 would start up our club and allow our students to participate without having to carry the heavy burden of paying out of pocket. So I've also included one last thing to maybe sweeten the pot or sway your decision, which is an essay that a student of mine wrote after our volleyball tournament. This is a senior girls volleyball tournament. I'm not going to belabor the point by reading this essay to you. You have important matters to get to. But if you could peruse the essay at your own leisure, I think that you will find that the spirit of the school is kind of brought forward in this piece, but that also the importance of having that athletic piece at the school, something that is easily accessible for students, is of the most importance. And to give you some context, this person, this young student is someone that collected the funds to participate on their own, tooth and nail, tried to get the funds ready for them to be able to participate. And so I hope that by reading this, you'll see the any advantageous kind of things for this club, for Norwood specifically. If you are comfortable with that, I will leave this into your very capable hands, and I can answer any questions that you may have immediately, unless that there is other business that you need to take care of.
I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It's very informative.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for coming in. I don't remember how many people are on a volleyball team.
6.
6.
So the 6 at 6 teams gives us that 36
Okay.
student cap. I chose 6 teams because it cuts the amount in half roughly of our student costs.
Okay.
I envision having a little more than that, considering that we are also including our intermediate students,
Okay.
which make up a large percentage of the school population. So from 13 to 18 being that window that we're looking to access.
Oh, yeah, Deputy Mayor Lee.
Yeah, thank you very much for your lovely presentation. I think you know, reached all of us here. We're all graduates of this high school, I believe, every one of us, and certainly my kids went to the school and did every single sport, as did I. So
Yeah.
you've got a soft spot in me. I will say that.
It's just getting, it's getting really harder for our students to
Absolutely,
participate.
yeah, absolutely. So I just have a question, and I'm wondering if the two on either side of me may be thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Have you done any other presentations in the community? And I'm thinking specifically the Legion members and the Lions Club.
So I have not.
Okay.
To be very candid, I spoke with Diane Graham, who
Yep.
advised me that this would probably be my first step.
Yep.
I've also spoken with our OSSTF representatives, more of on the union side of the school, who is in conversation as well, and nothing has come forward and landed on my desk, but we do have a few other avenues. But this is my first round of
Right.
presentations.
I think we can keep it pretty local. I think you'll have no problem.
Yeah,
So.
it'd be, if you have those contact numbers, seeing as though I am from outside. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Then yes.
I was gonna say, I'll stop at the school and see you on
Yes,
the way
yeah,
by.
absolutely. Well, we're just neighbors, so it'll be easy for us. But yeah, that's, thank you for that. That's kind.
Thank you.
All right.
Can I have a motion to receive the present? Sorry?
If you actually can, Jake, leave us your contact them.
Absolutely, 100%.
Our Reliance Style as well, there were a couple thoughts.
Beautiful.
We have a Boys and Girls Committee, to be this right in that alley, which has a number of the complete Legion, other organized local organizations, who want to support local initiatives that I think would be an opportunity.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. I will definitely leave. Is there,
We
just
can,
scribble it on a
we
note, leave
can
it at
pass
the
it
table?
along. We have it already.
Okay.
We have it already at the office. We can email it to you both.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time.
Call for motion to receive the presentation for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Byrd, second by Councillor Warren. All in favor of the motion? That motion is carried. Staff and committee reports. Risk assessment and management review for the drinking water quality management staff.
Good afternoon. Through you, Mayor. So the recommendation of this report is that the council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood receive this report regarding the annual management review and risk assessment review for the Norwood drinking water system and the Trempealeau Estates distribution system for information. So within our DWQMS, annually, we're required to complete a risk assessment review and a management review. So we'll start with the risk assessment. So elements 7 and 8 within our DWQMS, they cover the risk assessment procedure and the review. So this was annually we're required to go over the tables, but this was the 36-month review where we kind of dive in a little bit more to the tables, make sure they're up to date. Within the SOP 02, we kind of follow this guideline of what the ministry pocket guide is set out with identifying potential hazards, assessing the risks associated, ranking them, and there's a multiplying factor. So you take your likelihood of that event happening and what the consequence would be of that happening, multiply it, and that gives you an overall kind of risk assessment score. So when we're identifying those, we identify whether there's critical control points to control those risks, and kind of just how we have to actually now consider them if they're a part of climate change. That was a new requirement that came out last year. Anyway, so this was the 36-month review. You will see the attached risk assessment tables. So if there's any questions on those, I'd be happy to take those at the end. We identified the Wellington Street subdivision as a potential risk to the drinking water. That's already kind of covered within the tables under source, so it's not laid out in there specifically. But we have taken the vulnerability study, which you guys have seen, to kind of have a look at that. And we're going to be updating the source, the transport pathway bylaw as well. You'll see that probably this fall, as you'll see in the action list on the management review. So moving on to the management review, you will see here, there's quite a list of things we go through. These are also from the MEC DWQMS guide, and we've also created a SOP for the management review. And you'll see there's quite a few things. It's essentially the whole year's operating summed up, any non-compliances, adverses, critical control points that we haven't met, inspection results, audits from our DWQMS auditors, staff suggestions, all that kind of thing, consumer feedback. So there's quite a few elements there that we go over. You'll see the attached management review as well with the action items listed for this upcoming year and the action items that we completed last year that we laid out. And so essentially this is part of the DWQMS protocols. We bring this to council as you guys being the owners, and I can put a tick in the box when they ask me if I've done so. So I'd be happy to take any questions if there is any.
Okay, thank you, Kyle, for your presentation. Again, very formal, knowledge, a lot of knowledge there. I'll state the recommended motion right now, and then we can discuss after. The council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood receives a report regarding the annual management review and risk assessment for the Norwood drinking water system and the Trent View Estates distribution system for information. Mover, moved by Councillor Ward, seconder. Councillor Walsh, questions? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Sorry, Kyle.
No.
Actually, you brought up one of the questions I did have about the transport pathway creation and the new bylaw. I did see that the previous bylaw hasn't been updated since 2015. But on that line, you know, you have scoring metrics, I guess. So it says likelihood 2, and then it says consequences 4, and then risk value 8. What does the risk value mean on that?
So again, it's 1 to 5 on each likelihood and the consequence.
Yeah.
And then you just multiply those 2 factors to give you like an overall.
Okay,
So if the likelihood of it happening is very great.
Yeah.
But the consequence would be not so significant, then it still ends up with a high score because it could happen.
right, okay,
Whereas vice versa, if it's, the consequences is great, but the chances of it happening are low, it still puts it up as a significant risk.
so if I may, one follow-up, so to update the bylaw, which you said would be coming forward in another report, is it mandatory like every 8 years or when needed? Is there a time limit on doing those?
I don't believe there's any mandatory time limit on
Okay,
keeping that up to date. It's kind of just an internal protocol.
right,
But just within our discussions and reviewing that risk assessment, and we came to the same conclusion as you,
Yeah.
was like, it's probably long overdue for an update. So that's something we're gonna be tackling later in the year.
okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Councillor Hodge-Greaves.
Through you, Mayor, to, thank you, Kyle, but to Candace and Kyle, the training around the detail of these reports. Or is that going to be, we've talked about it, is it going to be on the schedule in May?
Yeah, so the April 28th meeting, we weren't able to get all of the members of council together. So we were looking at the staff as part of my CAO list today, to chat about, to try to get some dates together to get all 10 of us, to get a date and whether we can potentially move off the Fridays. But we got to talk to the mayor just during the CAO report, if that's okay.
No,
Kind of
that's
tackle
fine.
it, yeah.
I am getting to the point where I'm uncomfortable with the reports not having had secondary information. So I've done the statutory standard of care, water training, which was a brief overview. I feel personally, I need more time to understand, because at the moment I'm reading them and I'm getting uncomfortable with my role as an owner and not fully understanding the details. So I'm just following up on the training that I know.
Right.
So I'll discuss that later, but I just wanted to say, so Kyle, I would like some time. Hopefully we can get training soon, because I'd like to understand better.
Absolutely.
As an owner, I feel, yeah, this is something that is very important, and I don't feel I even have the words to put into I don't have the questions yet. So I'm just stating that I really would like the training. That's all.
And can I just follow up with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's also important too, is even we will of course hold additional training specific to water and wastewater. But I think every time you receive a staff report, it's important to then read it, and it's hard for us to get into your heads to know where the questions are coming from. So since, if we get a date booked in May.
Yeah.
If you could go back and review the water wastewater report, so you've had the section 11s and the 22s, and now the DWQMS reports. We've done annual wastewater. You've had quite a few quarterly reports for water and wastewater, and see what information in those reports are what does this mean? Where does this come from? To help us even streamline what that training looks like. So we're nailing what it is you're struggling with would be helpful for us too. Otherwise, we're kind of throwing a dart at a dartboard and not 100% understanding what information we should be delivering. So once we have the date set, if we could receive that information from all members of council, just even if they're overall general topics, because there's so much, and some of it literally takes time and building blocks. Like building blocks over top of it that kind of come over a period of time, and these are all annual. be so much easier if you've seen like one of these reports like every month. You
Yeah.
know, now you've seen all these reports. You won't really see much of Kyle now unless he has a tender closing until the first quarter next year, and you
Yeah.
see like 4 reports from him and they're the exact same reports.
Cause I think for me, it's, you know, if I'm looking at all the headings, what is, so to call this thing, you know, number 8. We, you know, understand what a number 8 is in terms of what's the highest risk and the highest thing. I mean, all of this non-compliance, okay, there's nothing there, but it's understand within the report, what are the most dangerous and risk issues. So, and I will spend the time and come back so that there is a list, but that's where I realized I was reading them and then I'm like, I don't know what are the most significant parts. So where's the real areas of concern? Because a lot of it's regulatory and it's management overview, but what's the important thing that, you know, if it's broken, what's the most important thing? So that's what I'll.
Within those tables, yeah,
Yeah, within those tables, because I was looking at them, so thank you.
yeah,
I
if you see a 10, that's for sure.
10 is bad.
10 we don't want to
Scary.
have.
10 is bad.
Scary.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
there you go.
unacceptable.
That's
Ten is
good.
bad.
Starting point. Thank you
Yeah,
very much. I
um,
appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest there.
Yeah.
If you do have any time, there is like the
Yeah.
MECP has a pocket guide, they call it,
Okay,
that kind of lays out a bunch of the DWQMS stuff a little
Yeah.
more kind of simply to digest, you know, so that's something worth looking into, but yeah.
thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, through you. Thank you very much for the report, Kyle. And just before I ask my question to Councillor Hodge, certainly I can remember, you know, all of us sitting around this table with these reports and spending a lot of time and looking up acronyms. That was my thing, you know, what are all of these acronyms? And I was going to mention that handbook because I found that helpful. And don't be afraid to ask staff. Honestly, you see a report and I know, I'm sure
Pages,
honestly.
every Sunday,
Pass.
4-page emails.
Because it is a lot to get your head around this, but it is important, so, you know, put those questions out, and I'm sure early on, all of us, the 3 of us at this table probably had, you know, many emails or conversations back and forth between Candace and Kyle to learn this, and we don't need to be experts, that's what we hire Kyle for. But we do need a basic understanding, so that's just my my comment there. And then thank you for answering that, transport pathways, that was one question I had, you clarified that, so thank you. And then you mentioned climate change and bringing that into the reports. Can you give, you know, other than the obvious flooding, can you give some other examples of climate change and how that pulls into the reports?
For sure, so I mean, as far as like, I think mainly source water is where that's gonna be the largest impact, so for example, down at Hastings, like we don't run that water plant, but down there with their source water, like if you get warmer climate, more runoff, like large rain events that run off and then warm days, you're gonna get more growth of algae, right? So like harmful blue-green algae, that's, I know, a concern for them down there.
Right.
For us, obviously, if it doesn't rain for 6 months, we're on a well system here and we know it's fairly robust, but we don't know what an extended drought looks like here that they experienced in California, for example. So, so I think with the ministry bringing that along, it's obviously at that time we had a different ministry in power
Yeah.
because that was just before the Conservatives and they were a little more thought about that, but it was just to kind of get you to wrap your head around, okay, what things in that risk assessment are going to be driven by climate change. The problem is that a lot of it's out of our, what kind of control measures do you put a pipe down the trunk, I guess, but I don't know, like
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff, there's not much we can do to control it, right?
I remember being at a conference, I remember where now, and talking about that, those 100-year weather events are now turning into 25-year weather events. And how that just changes the whole, you know, water, wastewater and how to mitigate those. So
For sure.
It's interesting. Just coming to the forefront, it's like say, California's in a mess. I
Yeah,
don't think we'll see that in our lifetime around this table, but
you never know, right?
those 100-year events are certainly becoming more.
Yeah.
complex.
Well, when you base all these designs of subdivisions, et cetera, on, and the stormwater management on 100-year events, 50-year
Exactly.
events, and they're all of
Yeah.
a sudden becoming,
More complex.
anyways, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Val.
Just a question, Kyle, I know you were working down on Maple Street because of the influx of
Yeah.
wastewater and having to treat it.
Yeah,
How much has that slowed it down big time since you?
it's definitely helped down there for sure. We cut about, between those two repairs, about 300 cubes a day
You're right.
off of the flows, which is.
Massive.
It's huge,
Yeah.
for sure. The flows are still up like higher than I've seen them this time of year for a while. I think that the groundwater is still quite high, but. Hopefully with this camera work we're doing the last few weeks and in the next couple weeks, we'll. Hopefully find out maybe where it's coming from, but
Right,
yeah, but yeah, it does help. All those repairs help.
all right. So we did have a motion on, sorry.
Just a comment from here. Again, Kyle, thank you very much for this report. I think just to develop on what Deputy Mayor Burke said. That means, yeah, it's a learning process. But I think we don't have to be experts. We have an expert here. If you have questions, absolutely reach out, and get those answers so that you feel comfortable. On the topic or an issue, you're not, but yeah, it's, again, we don't live and breathe this every day, whereas Kyle does, so. Really fine. Making sure it is a continual learning process for sure. But thanks, Kyle, for your report.
I does.
Yeah.
We'll call, all in favor of the motion? That motion is carried.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kyle.
On to R4.
Okay, so we have in front of you a staff report in regards to the letter of intent for land exchange between 29 Margaret Street and a portion of 4454 Highway number 7. This is triggered based on Margaret Street between County Road 40 and Helen Street, or the Charles Street easement, where it comes down. That water main needs to be replaced as part of a requirement under phase 3 development. It needs to be increased from 150 millimeter to a 200 millimeter water main. As a part of that, the infrastructure, the servicing that goes to those homes is 50 years old. It's original. They were put in the ground in 1972. So we've reached 50 years. So if we're going to open the road, as they call it, and dig down and replace the water main, it makes good sense to replace the services when the road is open. So during review of that and looking at the location of fire hydrants, location of private property lines, locations of where the township owns in the road allowance, it became abundantly clear that a road widening was needed in order to provide a satisfactory solution for the property owners and the municipality. Through further research, became apparent that the property owner that abuts 29 Margaret is the same property owner that abuts property that the township owns on Highway 7. So we initiated conversation with the property owner in regards to doing a land exchange. So we would give them property that abuts their property that they own at 4454 if we're able to get some property to accomplish a road widening on Margaret Street. The cost associated with the replacement of the services, the curb stop, and the relocation of the fire hydrant, et cetera, is borne by the municipality, as well as all legal and surveying costs associated with the land exchange. The cost of the installation of the water main and the restoration of that trench is the responsibility of the developer. What you'll see is the associated costs are approximately $8,000 for surveying and legal to be able to accomplish for both parcels. A merger agreement will need to take place in regards to the property at 4454 Highway 7 in order to merge that with their existing property, but we're not recommending any rezoning at this time. There is a potential that that could come forward at a later date, but current conversations with the property owner would remain the current zoning, which is rural on. So the portion that would be added to that would be rural. It's not going to change the zoning of the existing parcel that is owned on Highway 7, and it's not going to change any zoning of the current parcel on Margaret Street. All the existing zonings of all the parcels would remain the same. Just the Margaret Street, what would happen is it would be surveyed, the road widening would happen, it would be severed and added to the road allowance. On Highway 7, what would happen is a chunk off the municipal property would be severed off and it would be merged in with the existing property in Highway 7, but no zoning or planning applications at this time. The township staff have met with the property owner and they are in support of the land exchange. And as of the date of this report, are willing to enter into the letter of intent. And what this letter of intent would mean is once all parties have executed, we would then commence an incurring costs towards it. Instead of going and incurring costs and then things changing. So it's just a letter of intent that all parties are in agreement with this process, and then we're able to move forward with the survey, etc. I will take any questions from council.
Councilor Walsh, yes, Premier, Jensen, I believe you had spoken to this before. So that road allowance, so we don't own that road allowance on Market Street now, so this will allow us to own that road allowance.
We own the road allowance, we don't own enough width.
Don't own, sorry, kind of wood,
Yeah.
but to the east of that.
We do have
we do
width.
have that.
Yeah, so it's kind of chopped off there. You'll see the first, it's 210 feet long, but you'll see where it's 45 feet wide, and then right about the property line of home 24 and 26 on Helen, it narrows down to a 20-foot road allowance. So we can't actually install infrastructure appropriately in 20 feet. So we would extend north onto the 29 Margaret Street, the additional 25 feet. So then that 45-foot road allowance would come right from County Road 40 straight up to Charles. Okay.
Any other, Councilor Ward?
Yes, thank you for you. Candace, if this moves forward, is there any timeline that's expected, you know, with, like, do you know about, how long it will take for the lawyers and the surveying and that?
The lawyers will be fairly quick, but it's the surveying that's gonna take a bit of time. Surveyors are about 3 months out. So it'll be about that length of time, but that said, we've got to finalize the design and deal with the construction and all of that. So it's gonna all happen in 2023, even the construction of Margaret.
Yeah.
The developer wants to see it happen this year, and so do we, but there'll be some lead time in regards to the surveying.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I'll read the motion on behalf of Holder then. That the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood accepts this report in regards to the letter of intent land exchange portion of 29 Margaret Street and portion of 4454 Highway number 7 for information, and further that the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood authorizes the mayor and the clerk to enter into a letter of intent for the land exchange for the portion of 29 Margaret Street and the portion of 4454 Highway 7 with Mr. Brian. So moved by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councilor Ward. All in favor of that motion? That motion's carried. R5, proposed redistribution of federal electoral districts. Candace, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So this was a direction from council at a previous meeting in order for staff to prepare a report in regards to the proposed redistribution of federal electoral districts. So what township staff is recommending that council receive the report and then direct us to arrange a meeting with MP Lawrence and MP Ferrari's office just to be able to gain understanding as this process moves forward, as there's been changes throughout the process that isn't necessarily well communicated to the municipal government level. So we've had to stay on top of it. So as of right now, they are currently in the process of collecting data or comments from the MPs themselves. And that's going to happen from now until the end of June. And then they're going to gather all of that and put forward some mapping. So there's still an opportunity of the current mapping to change, I would suspect. Although they're saying that it's fairly certain that what they have delineated is going to remain. We all know that until that final stamp and seal of approval has happened, there is a potential for things to change. So every 10 years, this process happens. So every 10 years, the federal government establishes a commission in each province in order to take a look at and review electoral boundaries. The main driver is population. As provinces grow and the way in which they grow in the areas and districts and they grow in, to ensure that population, that each MP, I guess, has a fair equity of representation amongst their constituents. So they're actually, on top of that, they are slated to expand the House of Commons to include 5 new ridings. Of those, 1 is in Ontario, 3 in Alberta, and 1 in BC. So that's interesting. Obviously, the redistribution of federal electoral districts does have the ability to alter the outcome of elections down the road for sure. And they're stating that the new mapping, once approved, will only affect elections at post-April of 2024. At this time, Asphodel-Norwood is slated to remain in the Northumberland riding. Exactly what it's going to be called, I've seen it called a couple different things. I've seen it slated to remain Northumberland Peterborough South, and I've also seen it Northumberland Clark. So I'm unsure exactly what the final name is going to be, but we are slated to remain in Northumberland. Autonomy South Monaghan is currently with us in the Northumberland Peterborough South riding. They are going to be carved out and moved over into Peterborough. Trent, the northern part of Peterborough County, is going to go up to Halliburton, and Havelock is going to remain in Peterborough. Kevin Monaghan was originally going to be split into 3 ridings. They put forward some back in October. They went actually and met with the commission, because obviously having 3 ridings split up your municipality is not ideal for anyone. And as of right now, they have removed that mapping. They're no longer going to be split into 3. My understanding is as the growth to the south happens in our current riding, and that continues to grow, the northern municipalities, which would be us, I suspect will be squeezed out of the Northumberland riding for population numbers. As the southern 401 corridor grows, we're going to be squeezed out. But then the Peterborough ridings are also getting larger, so something's going to break eventually, and maybe eventually we'll see a whole other riding in our area. So
We used to be with Hastings, like to the east, Hastings, Peterborough. So it shifted, and
yeah,
there was a big outcry when that changed, but yeah, we're just the only ones in the Peterborough County, aren't we, that are in Northumberland?
the only ones that are in Northumberland, there's Peterborough County split into 1, 2, 3, 4 different ridings. So we happen to be in Northumberland. Trent Lakes and North Fork are going up north into Halliburton. Cavan is split between Peterborough and the boundary to the west.
I've had quite a few people say to me, how come we're not with Peterborough? And I sort of agree with it. We're at Peterborough County Council. It's easier to meet your MPs there. That's just one comment that I've had. Another one with it, like you said, the way that the boundaries are changed, one could have been split into 3. I was talking to 2 councillors today from Havelock, and they said, well, it just seems so weird going from Peterborough County into Northumberland County back into Peterborough County on your way into county council. Mayor Burke, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through you. Yeah, thanks for bringing this back so quickly. Appreciate it. And I just have another little question before I ask that main one. Havelock was originally supposed to be split to as well as not.
Yeah, it's gonna
but
go to the east. but
They
kept
brought
it.
them back together. Okay, I looked on the map, and I think on the map, it still showed them going east, so I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, certainly, we need some input from our local MPs. It's tough being on that border. Every 10 years you get bounced around, and it's not fair.
No.
And I think if we can come up with a solution, if you just said it's looking like the southern part is going to grow, and bam, we'll get moved again. So it's frustrating. It's a frustrating process. So have you heard any feedback from our MP at all on this yet?
I spoke to his office manager yesterday in
Okay.
regards to the strike and the issues
Oh.
with the passport issuance, because we've had people reaching out in regards to that. So I tacked this conversation on to the end, and I explained that we would be reaching out to set up a meeting, and based on their debrief from MP Lawrence, it doesn't seem like the MPs are gonna be causing too many waves with the electoral boundaries. With us remaining where we are now, it could potentially be one less flip. So there's no flip this time. We stay where we've been for the last 10 years. We'll stay there for another 10. At least we've had 20 consistent years. Then in the next one, I suspect, based on the growth, we're gonna flip. But I think that flip, the growth is gonna continue to the south on the 401 corridor. I think this flip to the north in 10 years, or we're into a central riding, it would be somewhat static, you know, then would be as good as my crystal ball gets, you know, but that's my feeling. If we flip into Peterborough now, the population numbers to the south, is my understanding, don't support it. They only need OSM into Peterborough to get around that 110,000 in every riding, and that's what they try to do. And Autonomy South Monaghan, they're not gonna leapfrog them to come to us. So, you know, just naturally, plus there's the Bensford Road commonality between the city and Autonomy South Monaghan, landfill, environmental issues, concerns ongoing. You know, it kind of makes sense when you look at it from, you know, bird's eye view, why they chose to bring OSM in prior to us. But that said, we currently don't have any relationships with the NPs in Peterborough. No, we have no relationship with NP Ferrari, we have no relationship with NP Smith. And the other thing is the province tends to follow suit. I suspect the provincial boundaries will change to whatever they are once the feds are done.
Councillor,
I mean, I recognize we don't have relationships now, but the nature of politics is we could have all new MPs, all new MPPs, and we have no relationship with anybody. So it doesn't, just because they're in now, doesn't mean they could be here. They might not be here in the next election either. So, but yeah, it seems for now to be a comfortable place to stay. But because of our county league affiliation, it does more logically seem to be Peterborough. But then, as I said, we used to be more of a rural riding when we were part of Hastings. So
Right.
There's no easy answer.
And just one more comment, certainly from the county level, when reports go from the county or to staff, it goes to all the MPs and all the MPs. So I think they've got a pretty good system down. Sometimes we just have to remind them that, hey, it's not just MPP Smith, please add the other ones in, and I think that just looks like that.
Well, there's
Pretty
going to be
understanding
one
users,
rider
so,
for all
yeah.
the county.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
ideally, that's what you would have, and if that's not being proposed, it's gonna always be. split up,
Exactly.
Yeah,
any other discussion?
I don't have anything.
Councillor,
So just one comment, you know, I feel that we are in a unique situation here because, you know, I think many of us support, say, the Campbellford Hospital, and, you know, sometimes our boundaries do overlap. Just because it says we're going into another county doesn't mean we have relationships with everyone.
Yeah.
And so that's my only comment, but, you know, we still build relationships with our neighbors.
neighbors.
Yeah.
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 Okay, I'll read off the motion. Did I haven't read it. That the council, Township of Asphodel-Norwood accepts this report in regards to the proposed redistribution of federal electrical districts for information, and further that the council and Township of Asphodel-Norwood directs township staff to arrange a meeting with MP Lawrence and MP Ferrari to discuss the proposed redistribution of federal electoral districts and impacts on Asphodel-Norwood. I have a mover for that motion. Moved by Councillor Wars, second by Councillor Hodge, Greaves. All in favor of that motion? The motion's carried. Strategic plan progress update.
Thank you. So this is exciting. The strategic, I love the strategic planning process. So the 2022-2024 strat plan has been one of my favorite documents that we've had as a governing tool. And so we thought it was time to bring forward an update just to give council an idea of where we're at in regards to progress. That said, we will kickstart the new strat plan process next year for the next one, so probably like quarter 3-ish. We'll take a look at it. So our first strategic plan, our mission and our values and our vision is all there to remind council. Our first one was strength and strengthening our communities. And underneath that, we had 5 key priorities: healthcare, community programming, recreation, parks and trails, waste management, and emergency management and response. Obviously, very key things that I think that we can say are still relevant as of today. Under each category, there were action items. So in the chart, you'll see the action item underneath each priority. And in the column next to that, you'll see whether it was short-term, medium, long-term, or ongoing, etc. Most of them are ongoing. For the most part, a lot of them are overlap from previous strategic plans and may continue on into the next strategic plan. So underneath, you can see there isn't a lot that is really, really outstanding. A lot of the stuff is going to get buttoned up in 2023, such as the closure plan under waste management, new accessibility plan under in 2023. We're going to continue to ongoing with our collaboration with the library. Like, I think the goal of the strat plan was to establish those things but just because the strat plan will come and go and identify new priorities, those things will continue to exist and live and breathe due to the strat plan. So they'll be ongoing, whether that's the senior initiatives, etc. Obviously, we'll be actively participating in physician recruitment, advocate for expanded healthcare services, including healthcare providers and a new medical center. That was our #1 priority survey under the last strategic plan. So council is aware we entered into an intent to lease last September. You do have a staff report coming in May with the update for that next step of that process. Is there any questions under, I think maybe they're under strength? I'm not going to read the entire chart out loud, but if there's any questions particular in regards to #1.
Deputy Mayor,
Thank you, through you. Just under the waste management, when we talk about the organic waste program, so in that, with the steps, we could certainly add in the food cycler program that
Yeah.
we've initiated. Okay. As that is said, do you foresee a change in the ongoing communication with Peterborough County regarding organic waste, or both on the table until?
Loaded question.
I know it is. Maybe I shouldn't ask it, but I'm just, we'll keep both on.
I don't know,
the list.
deputy mayor, county councilor. What is the answer to that
I don't know what
question?
the answer is.
I would say there's some tough decisions that are gonna come down to this table and
Yeah.
some strong opinions, probably from your CAO to help you guide our way through that. Obviously, the RFP has went out, to look at, waste solutions across Peterborough County from Peterborough County. They've released this RFP to take a look at curbside garbage. That conversation is more important than that RFP. It is going to trickle down into organics. It's going to trickle down into the other waste services, the depots, everything that is offered by Peterborough County. That RFP will dictate their service delivery review, from my opinion, of that department. And that will dictate what else happens to us as lower tiers. I caution the amount of change that's coming to waste to residents with the change of producer responsibility coming January 1, 2024. We just had our meeting with the governing body that the province has appointed to them, CMO. They have the Circular Materials Ontario. They canceled their meeting with our township because they didn't have all of the agreements in place. So they met with a couple of lower tiers in the county, realized the meetings were not productive, canceled the rest of them. So there's a lot that needs to happen between now and January 1. And to me, getting our residents through that change, getting us through that change, considering the number of properties that we have that are ineligible. We have 2 new condo buildings that are going in that aren't eligible. So there's 20 units there that we need to come up with a solution for, or the condo owners have to come up with a solution for. So there's some big stuff coming down the pipe in regards to waste, and that's why I left that sentence kind of open-ended and vague. Because I can't really say more than that until we start to make some decisions, and to me, the low-hanging fruit here is get the residents through producer responsibility. And leave, that is a big enough job, and do it well. And leave curbside garbage until the dust settles, because we all have contracts right now. We're all sustaining, we're all doing our thing. And we all know organics has sat on a shelf for 20 years. You know, so it's a question that needs to be answered, but I think we need to get through producer responsibility first.
Okay, thank you. And certainly, just to comment, with the changes with the producer responsibility, and you look at the city and the changes they're going through, there'll be clear garbage bags and organics all within 2 months of each other, and I couldn't imagine trying to navigate that timing. So I'm glad we're not there.
No,
I'm glad that's not us.
No,
So,
And they're
Okay.
talking about it.
yeah, and the changes in that as well. So it will be interesting. Waste is huge and we'll see where it lands. So, thank you.
wasting trees.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on then to category 2, sustainability, achieving operational excellence. The biggest thing, we are looking at an update to the infrastructure assessment report that was undertaken in 2020. That report is available on our website. It is there if you wish to review it. It was an assessment that was done as the township was experiencing growth. We'll take a look at the growth pockets that were identified at that time, what the infrastructure was at the ground. So we had a really clear understanding of, you know, water storage, water treatment, water mains, sanitary pumping station, wastewater treatment, the wastewater mains, and where our pinch points were. So fast forward now, we've seen a lot of growth happen, and the predicted growth pockets, some of them have stayed the same, but there has been a shift. So we want to update that document, because to me, that document is living and breathing, and we need to update that document as we're growing, because the property that was sold on Mill Street, the most northerly property closest to Highway 7, that was not identified in the 2020 infrastructure assessment report. It wasn't on anybody's radar, that property. We had 2 other large parcels in the settlement area or bordering the settlement area that we felt would have went first. So we want to just update that to continue to be in alignment. OP has been submitted to the province. As we know, the city of Peterborough has got their OP back with extensive comments and changes required from the province. Peterborough County has not received theirs back. I suspect it's coming, but based on the changes in Bill 23 and Bill 97, which I'm gonna get into Bill 97 in my CAO list, I suspect there's gonna be huge comments and changes. So who really knows when we're gonna see a final OP? I do suspect it, and adopting our updated zoning bylaw in conjunction, we have 2 years to do it after a new OP is done, we'll move into the new strat plan. Like, there's no way the OP is gonna be approved in a new zoning bylaw adopted in this strategic plan window to 2024, it's gonna have to shift over. Budget survey scheduled to be released in June and July. We continue to put little snippets about the budget in newsletters, websites, social media to try to educate. A couple of big policies are coming down. I've kind of put a pause specifically on the reserve management policy because there is impact on Bill 2397 on a policy such as that. So I'm sitting in on a training session that the province is giving through MFOA the end of June. I think it's the 29th of June. So just to kind of see where the dust is settling with Bill 2397 and how it would affect a policy like that to ensure we're incorporating that. So we're just not bringing it back and making amendments within the next 12 months. Currently in compliance with asset management, but as you are aware with the changes to asset management, we have milestones we have to reach. We have another one in July of 2024 and then another one in 2026. So we'll just continue to meet those obligations. Yeah, unless there's anything. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor, Candace, in one thing, this is sustainability and achieving operational excellence. One thing I have noticed it's not as relevant or not as prominent in the strat plan, which I might be when we is climate change considerations. Whereas at the Good Roads Conference, there was a lot of discussion around net zero and moving towards that. The same with this morning's aerospace thing. The last presentation was talking about moving towards net zero. And part of that is a baseline of where people are with emissions. Is that moving, and Kyle's comment around the, there's climate change considerations are in those guidelines. In terms of our strat plan and sustainability from an environmental aspect, is there anything that I'm not reading that we are considering? Because in this, I didn't see it unless
No, so it's got a different home, that's all. So it's the
Okay.
Climate Change Action Plan, the CCAP, which is a separate document. So
okay,
it's governed through that, which I can email to you,
okay,
as well as our energy management plan.
okay.
So those two documents govern climate change, energy efficiencies. So they have different action items in them. So
Yeah.
it's, going paperless, for instance. It is the LED retrofit replacement programs in our facilities. It's the installation of variable frequency drives in all of our plants for water and wastewater. Electric vehicle considerations, and then submitting all of we track on spreadsheets. So every bill we receive, every invoice that comes in that has a climate change, component to it, or a greenhouse gas component, it's tracked on spreadsheets, and we submit all of that. And then as a collective unit between the city and the county, we all have targets we have to meet.
Okay.
So I'll provide all of that to you. Because of that, the adoption of those documents was just before this document.
Okay,
But what will happen in the subsequent strat plan, there'll be probably between now and our new strategic plan review of those documents and kind of where we stand. So are those documents going to continue to live and breathe in separate homes? Is it all going to come together into one governing document? Is remained to be seen, but I will get those two documents to you.
yeah, or is it just linking them so there's reference to them? Is that, or it doesn't matter, but just thank you. It's good that they're there. Just, it seemed odd to me that there's something called sustainability and it didn't talk about climate, but clearly there's another whole plan for that one.
There's
so
another
that's
whole
fine.
plan. It actually is more important than the three that are listed here, because it has its own plan.
All right,
Um,
thank you.
but, and also I can't add to the document now
No,
that it's,
I meant,
done,
sorry,
I
in
can't.
I meant in the future. I didn't. mean
oh,
this one.
okay, good, because
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant. Sorry.
okay.
Thank you.
Number 3, prosperity, growing our economy. So as you can see, some things coming up in 2023-24 and 24-25 in regards to continuing to advocate and invest in expansion of broadband width. That conversation is ongoing. Any opportunity that we have to put forward, yes, please pick us. Please give us more broadband width. We do, of course. We're going to review the community improvement plan that was discussed at the Business Advisory Committee meeting. So all of that documentation was provided to that committee. But ultimately it's the final review and decision of council, and it is governed under the Planning Act. So there is certain steps and things that have to follow under legislation. We're going to continue to support the Choose Local campaign that we started in 2022. The businesses have now picked up on that, and they actually are sending their stuff to us in advance of us putting out our big program, which is nice. We have recently became a member of the Peterborough and Kawartha Chamber of Commerce, which I will discuss further in my CAO list. Unless there's something else in there that council would like me to specifically speak to, I think that's basically it. It's kind of ongoing. No? Okay. Engage, so engaging our communities and our citizens, so attracting and retaining volunteers. The recruitment for our new term for boards and committees was extremely successful. We've seen, I think, more applications than we did the last round for sure. Regularly reviewing those compositions and mandates, which we did. We went through, and new terms of reference was adopted for each in 2022. Supporting each committee with time and financial resources. For the first time, those additional financial resources were added in the 2023 municipal budget. We'll be able to at least now be able to see how that works out and monitor the needs moving forward. Continue to promote township initiatives online. Township of Asphodel mobile app, website, social media, mail outs, newspaper, and community signs. I'm gonna pause there to dig into this a little bit. So we have, as part of our communication strategy, the ongoing placement of an ad in the community press. It is in there in the same spot every single week. The cost of that has gone up quite significantly, and it doesn't hit every resident. So I'm going to be bringing forward a staff report to council in regards to the ad in the community press and potentially a solution that I feel is a better way to communicate with the resident that we'll get more for our money, and it'll actually hit every resident, not just the community press receivers. So just putting that, stay tuned, details to come forward, but I'm just disappointed in the costs for what we're getting. We have formalized a public consultation strategy to continue engagement initiatives to be completed in 2024. We do have our communication plan, and we decided we were going to take a look at all of our different avenues of communication, figure out what's working, what's not working, and then formalize all of those into a strategy. So 2024 will know that information will help us drive the next strat plan. Release of the quarterly newsletter, so they've been being released, as council is aware, quarterly, as well as our year-end review. And I think all of those have been well received, and to continue to promote those documents to our residents. It's a really nice outline of where the township has come from over the quarter or the year. And I will leave it at that, and any further questions.
Councilor Walsh.
Through you, Mayor, I'm talking about access to sustainability. And I know it's a blank, but so under the accountable governance, encouraging staff development, cross-training, succession planning, I know it's sitting blank there right now, but I will get your name back to us. We do have a report coming forward on May 9th, so it was like we're not doing nothing there. Where's the report coming forward? Just give us a status update.
Yeah, there is a report coming forward, and the plan, is only as good as the talent pool behind it. As we're all knowing, the struggle is getting the market right now is definitely challenging. All municipalities around us, including ourselves, are definitely struggling. So my bigger concern isn't having a plan. I've always had a plan. I know what the succession plan is. I'm just going to be delivering it to council. My biggest concern is that being able to backfill the need with qualified personnel in a timely fashion is probably more the bigger concern. We knew it was coming. We knew municipal governance was not something that is top of mind necessarily, and COVID pushed out a lot of the baby boomers retiring. COVID, the ones that were remaining were kind of like, well, now's as good a time as any. So there was an influx of retirements, and there was just not that back end coming in. And so I suspect the predictions under AMCTO and AMO is, outwards of feeling the effects for the next decade. So we'll just have to, try to create. Fortunately, we have a good work environment and a good team, and people want to work here. And so we don't have any issues with retention. It's just more being able to backfill it. But a portion of that conversation will occur in closed session, because it'll identify certain staff members. That's why it's not listed there. Anything else?
Any other questions? Okay, there is a motion here that the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood accepts this report in regard to the 2022-2024 strategic plan progress update for information. Mover. Councilor Walsh, seconder. Councilor Hodge-Greaves, all in favor? That motion's carried. R7. Management action list.
Okay, so I'm going to add a report on here for bylaw process. in May. Coming up in May, fourth quarter financial variance, now the audit is over, you'll be able to see the unaudited financial position to the township. Water restriction bylaw, this is something else that, Kyle and I have been chatting about. We've been circling around this for the last few years, as to what we're gonna do in the village when it comes to the hot summer months. And we're gonna be bringing forward for council's consideration a water restriction bylaw. We've been strictly been voluntary up till now. So we normally put out some communication, can you guys just please, reduce the watering of the lawns, et cetera. So we want to formalize that process this year as far as, even days you water, odd days, odd number of houses you water these days, even number, times of day. Just maybe some educating, like watering your lawn at noon in 30-degree weather is not, helping your lawn, but it's also putting treated water out the tower. Or, although they pay for it, there is a supply demand that we need to be conscious of. So that's what that is. A development agreement for the new medical building. So whenever we see a large development such as this, we enter into a development agreement to ensure we have securities to do the peer review, as well as ensuring that there's an understanding between the municipality and the developer in regards to other types of conditions. Parking, recycling, garbage, road, lighting, sidewalk, all of those types of things. So you'll see that development agreement hopefully on May 9th. You'll see an update on the medical center lease and doctor recruitment. You'll see the conversation off capacity, Westwood signs. Gravel crushing tender result, it closed yesterday, over budget. Surface treatment tender closed yesterday within budget. Merger agreement come forward with Bailey, that's at the end of Robert Road, where we had that little consent sliver there, that's that. The Trent River Access Point review is not coming May 9th. I don't know, because that's not possible. Municipal government week will be able to, kind of put some plans together as to what we're gonna see in October. Session plan, and then Dr. Rollick is selling her practice to Dr. Norman. We have a current legal lease with Dr. Rollick in regards to her space, so we need to take a look at that. And that's also gonna tie into the update on the medical center. Those two conversations are gonna come in together, so. Parking bylaw update, you'll see that on May 23rd. That is stemming from ongoing conversations with the Fair Board in regards to no parking provisions and bringing forward an update to support those decisions for no parking sections on certain streets in the village during Fair weekend. We have another scheduled meeting with the representatives on May 5th. So the fair representatives of the Fair Board, township staff, so Public Works, Parks and Rec, myself, OPP, and Fair and Fire all met to discuss operations for the fair. We're meeting on site May 5th. So kind of the follow-up for that, we need to formalize some of that in a bylaw, and that's coming forward on the 23rd of May. Removal of wood grindings tender, that closes, I believe, next Monday. So we'll be able to bring that. I think that's gonna probably come May 9th, actually. Okay, and there's lots of stuff coming on later down the pipe, but I'll leave it with council if you have any questions.
Any questions, councilors? No. Okay, can I have a motion to accept this report? The revisions suggested by the CAO, that's Councillor Ward, second by Deputy Mayor Burt. No more discussion, all in favor? That motion's carried. Correspondence?
So I think we have, what do we have here? We have C6.
C6.
Yeah.
What's council's wishes? Respect to the court findings.
I can start the conversation. Certainly his presentation was excellent. We do have policies and guidelines around our donation policy, and certainly this is it. I think we have 2 members of council who sit on a couple of boards, and I do believe that this would be an excellent program to go through that. From a township perspective, we can certainly support with communications and pushing it out and supporting it. It's, a number of years ago, many of us around this table were, we're at the fight and saving the school, and this is another way to guarantee we can keep this high school in our city. And certainly, not in everybody knows this, but certainly supporting in, I don't know what the word would be, perhaps not financially right now, but in principle, thank you. And, but I do believe that within a couple of organizations in the community, they can meet or exceed what is needed. But I would like to keep abreast of how the program is going and continue to have conversations if we need. That's just my thinking.
I think Barry and I might be able to handle this.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on?
We seconded.
Seconded out, yes, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Burt made the motion, supported principal.
Support in principle to receive and push it to external nonprofit groups.
Okay.
I.e. Lions.
We want that in the motion?
No, because
Okay.
there could be more
Okay.
external
Just
groups that could help.
Just a comment though, just to tag on what Deputy Burt was saying, that, I feel that the communication part, we can really help with that from the township. And sometimes that's more important, that communication links and social media, it gets to a lot of people. And, the more people that participate and want to help, I think that that is a really good way for our township to continue to help.
Do you want a second?
Yeah, I'll second it, yes.
Barrier.
Barry?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, council liaison reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring forward? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It's a verbal report and I'll send this on to Mel, later. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance. So I just want to say that our coronation tea, which is on May 6th, we have 15 tickets left to sell out. Anyone that has sets on the side, please see Brenda Bullock, to pay for those. She does have some names for a couple people. And so we were very happy that it's almost sold out. I also wanted to give a review on our tartan and tails. That was our first spring talk at the town hall. And we had approximately 30 people in attendance, but even better, the presentation we put on the Facebook Live, and we had it on for 24 hours. And we had 590 people view the presentation. And so that was really, and so we took it down after the 24 hours, but there is interest. Sometimes people can't always make it on that night, but the talk was really good. And I was happy to see that participation from the community from an online presence anyways. And I just wanted to give an update that the Heritage Center will be open on June 3rd is our target date. And we'll have whatever the display is, it will be up for the summer months. And I hope that everyone here can come and take a look at what the volunteers have been doing. Because it was a big project to get the Heritage Center back into shape after the flooring. And I think people will be pleased. So that's it, thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I did have a written report. I just wanted to touch on one of the courses that I did, the advanced land use course through AMO. There is one that comes before that, and I had done that a few years ago. And I did this one last week and it was excellent. So I would, for anybody sitting around this table, I would certainly do the first one, and at some point before the end of this term. I thought it was very helpful, very well organized course, very on topic. And they took scenarios, and it's everything that you would see that could come to council. They were certainly more complex. There was often, residential and agriculture and industrial all in one, and kind of for planning purposes. And it was quite interesting. Breakout groups, you'd have discussions, bring it back to the whole group. Planners would chime in as to what their recommendations would be. And it was very good. And the one thing that came from this, I wanted to share with you, when planning matters come to the table. She said the important thing is to remain neutral, gather all the accurate information, read the studies, ask questions, get your questions answered, but to listen to the professional staff. And I thought that was very important. And then make your decisions on the above, which I just stated. And I think that was good, because sometimes a lot of us come into, planning matters with a preconceived notion. So she said, if you take nothing from this, do that. And I just thought I'd share that with the group. And like I say, it was a very good course.
I want to send her flowers.
Pardon?
I want to send her flowers. No, that's great that that's the message, when that message is coming down from AMO, like straight down, like it's so important when there's alignment like that.
Yeah.
In the message from municipal government straight up through.
Yeah,
So kudos to her. for
It was
putting that out there.
it was a very good course, on topic and on task. When she said there was a 7-minute break, boom, you're back in. It was so well organized. Excellent. So I'm throwing that in there to council. I would highly recommend it. So.
Councillor Hodgkrees.
Thank you, Stephen. Last week I did attend the Good Roads Conference. I've got my report partially written up, but I didn't quite get enough time to finish on Wednesday. Overall, it was a very well managed event. It was very interesting. The Premier spoke, Caroline Mulrooney spoke, head of transport. The opposition were there as well from the provincial government. And yeah, it was really interesting. So there'll be more in my written report. And this morning I attended along the mayor, the Aerospace Summit, and that was also really interesting about the economic drivers for this area. So that will all be forthcoming. So thank you.
Councillor Wall.
Yeah, well, from a special events committee standpoint, next upcoming event would be Showcase Asphodel-Norwood, which will be held here in the living room on Saturday, June 17th. We are currently looking for a major sponsor to be our sponsor, but plans are moving forward and saying their tastes in terms of the showcase. So that's going to be right.
Anybody else? Did we discuss anything about what went on with the police meeting that they had?
The joint OPP.
The joint
At the
one?
last meeting, I
Okay.
brought them.
You brought them up to scope on that?
Yeah,
That's good.
at our last meeting,
Just sitting the cart before the horse for that one.
yeah, most
Um,
definitely. Okay, my turn.
Anything? Yes, your turn. Moving ahead with the CAO clerk treasurer's list.
Okay, I've already explained that, staff met with the OPP and the fair board and fire to discuss 2023 fair operations and follow-up on-site meeting set for May 5th. The construction of the easement for the water main installation behind the businesses on County Road from Victoria, behind the businesses on 45 out to Highway 7, like behind the drugstore and Royal Bank, has been rescheduled to commence May 1st. I wanted to chat to you guys a little bit about Bill 97, the Helping Home Buyers Protecting Tenants Act 2023. it is, there's a fair bit of information in there that is going to impact, all municipalities, but I thought I would give you guys a synopsis of what would impact us on a high level. There will be the elimination of intensification targets. So this previous council would have remembered, remember we supported a reduction of the intensification targets from 40% down to 15% in the built up area of a settlement area. That intensification targets is going to be gone. They're repealing the growth plan and putting the provincial policy statement and any new growth related legislation into one home instead of having two governing documents. That actually, from a efficiency standpoint, having to when you're reviewing a planning application to only have to go to one home to look at it is actually somewhat appealing to planning staff. There's going to be the ability to expand settlement area boundaries without a municipal comprehensive review. So currently, right now, in order to extend your settlement area boundary or to have a delineation or a change, you have to go through an NCR, which is governed under the official plan, which triggers the county and obviously an extensive process. Unless you're swapping lands in, which we've seen in our municipality where some lands in the settlement area get taken out and put back in, like we're just swapping it, but our net settlement area stays the same. But the ability to expand without an MCR, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be criteria to meet. It just means the MCR process of that criteria is no longer there. No delineated built up area. So that's no delineated built up area within a settlement area that intensification target needs to apply to. It doesn't really have a huge impact to us in the sense that we would never meet it anyway. In order for us to meet the intensification target set by the province in the village of Norwood, we'd have to basically level the existing village and build it all up in high rises in order to meet a 40% intensification target. So we would never really have met it anyway, and it was kind of unreasonable. We would never probably use that lens to look at, approving things. So not a huge impact to us there, but when you look at it provincially wide, there's more of an impact. Municipalities can consider and landowners can apply for the removal of land from employment areas. Additional residences will be permitted on farm properties. So where I would equate this to, it's up to 2 additional on one parcel. So I would equate this to secondary, that's the next one coming. This is additional on one parcel. So it's almost like secondary dwellings, but there's actually going to be like a third dwelling. So additional surplus dwellings allowed on one parcel of ag. Up to 3 additional residential parcels off of that ag land. So there's your severance piece. Up to 3 severances off of ag properties. Proposes to clarify that OPs, official plans, and zoning bylaws can still require more than 1 parking spot for primary residential units. So municipalities have been asking for that because in the last round of legislative changes, they kind of took that requirement out because there was developments getting turned down because there wasn't enough parking. So the province removed that requirement that we weren't allowed to hold it, but then I quickly realized that I think the fallout of that is obviously caused some concern. So they clarified that OPs and zoning bylaws can still require more than 1 parking spot, but primary residential unit. So when you have secondary units on the same lot, you can't impose additional parking requirements on the secondary unit, just on the primary residential unit itself. They also put into proclamation as of April 6th, the section under Bill 23, that gives the minister basically the equivalent of a ministerial zoning order, an MZO on OPs. So now they have the same power on official plans as they do on zonings. So it's kind of like an MZO on the zoning side and then a ministerial order for the OPs, same power for both planning documents. That came into effect April 6th. Yeah. It didn't expand the list of upper tiers who would be stripped of their planning responsibilities. So under Bill 23, the following upper tiers were stripped of their planning responsibilities and sent down to the lower tiers. County of Simcoe, Durham, Halton, Niagara, Peel, Waterloo, and York. All planning decisions will be made at lower tiers only. So they don't go to them for approval of planning a subdivision or anything. It's all gone back to the lower tier. I was waiting for Bill 97 to come out, so I wanted to see if they were gonna expand that list. They didn't expand it. What they have put out is that they will be looking at that section coming into proclamation, probably not to the winter of 2024. Because that's massive implications. All of the upper tier staff are now gonna become staff at the lower tier. So that's Bill 97 in as condensed of a nutshell as I can do it. This is what I'm seeing happening is that we haven't even fully implemented, was it Bill 108 before Bill 23? Like across the I mean, not necessarily, I mean province-wide, like Bill 108 is fully executed. Now we slept on Bill 23, now we're sleeping on Bill 97. There's a lot here to digest. Now remember, this is what's tabled. None of this has received royal assent, none of this is proclaimed, so it's not in effect. Other than the ministerial order for OPs, which came into effect April 6th. So we'll be watching it obviously very, very closely to see when all of this stuff's gonna come into play. They are going to be reaching out obviously for public consultation. Obviously, there's certain pieces on here. There's gonna be some groups that are going to be interested in speaking to and commenting on for sure. But I just wanted to let you guys know that that's what the province has tabled as soon as I could. So once some more has come down, so Bill 23 hasn't even been fully proclaimed. So not every regulation that's come down in Bill 23 has all received royal proclamation. For instance, you know, the planning responsibilities of those upper tiers, that was tabled in Bill 23. It hasn't been proclaimed as far as given an effective date. So some of it is still outstanding. Obviously, Bill 97 is in commenting period stage. Fast forward 6 months from now, I'm gonna have probably Jamie Robinson come in from MHBC and do a presentation on what does this mean for us. I mean, I can give you the Coles Notes version of everything that's happening and I'll have an understanding of it, but I think it's important for someone that lives and breathes planning every day to come and give us, but right now is not the time. Let's see what actually gets approved, and how they're going to implement it and what that implementation means. Because right now, we don't really know what the impacts are. So, you know, 6 months down the road, we'll have more of an idea. We'll have Jamie come in, do a presentation, see where we're gonna land. I can tell you, planning, if all of this goes, if Bill 23 and it gets fully proclaimed with effective dates in between now and the end of 2024, Bill 97 gets proclaimed and all dates are fully in effect before the end of 2024. Every planning department in this province is gonna be inundated. Like, it's going to be literal chaos, as far as planning applications goes. That said, you'll definitely see the houses going up. But. Okay,
It's interesting, Dennis. That they're kind of pulling back on employment lands, that's all it has.
Oh, I know.
And you saw that in Peoples, it's kind of like where they had land that they were hoping for employment land, it's kind of like.
so what's that gonna mean for the boundary of the city of Peterborough? Yeah, you know where that's headed, so.
It was so interesting in the MPAC presentation that, you know, the statistic that really stood out to me is that condos are getting smaller, but single family dwelling houses are getting bigger. And so we're not, you know, it's not even an effective use of space because we're trying to house more people. Why are we making our condos smaller? You should make our condos bigger. And then on average, yeah, that was one thing that really stood out from the MPAC thing was
Stood out to
it
me too.
seems
Yeah.
regressive to shove people
It's
into
cost-
higher density housing into smaller spaces rather than, and then you have a house with more space. It was interesting. And then here we are, can't have a job, but you have a house, but yeah.
I think it's market driven. People are willing to pay more for a single res house, but they're willing to pay less for a
Yeah.
condo, and the cost to. That may change if some of all of what the province is trying to do is actually accomplished. And there's more condos, and then they're trying to make the cost of building these condos come down because the cost is so astronomical, so they've just. Instead of increasing the cost, you just get less square footage.
Yeah.
And so maybe we'll start to see a swing there, but as far as employment lands go. We're not in abundance of them, and the majority of our employment lands are rural, because it's out on Highway 7. And, we don't have a lot of employment lands that would be able to be given up for housing. For instance, our industrial land is so close to our wastewater treatment plant, we can't put houses there. So it's not gonna come up, as you need to put houses there. It's too close to treatment plant. Unless they change all of that legislation too, to say you can live next door to one of those, if you so wish.
Buyers beware.
Yeah, thanks to you. Yeah, it's interesting to see these changes, and that was certainly addressed in that course that I took, that, this could be going right out the window, but, certainly, you look at the work that was put into the OP, not just at the county, but everywhere. The
Years.
work and the hours and the years to just now, all of a sudden, you're basically throwing it, starting from ground zero, and the problem is dictating, so. A little bit of frustration there to put it mildly, and then certainly from the ag community, they're very concerned about the additional lots. Yes, they're, certainly lots on farms makes sense in a lot of cases, but having, 2 or 3 additional, farmland, especially, in the areas where southwestern Ontario, huge tracts of farmland, and all of a sudden.
Some of that is
that a
that.
little bit more. Yeah, specialized
Specialized
farmland.
farmland, and
So-
a lot of it's down in the.
And I assume that's for people food, like not just, corn, beans and wheat, that's
No.
more,
Yeah.
human crops.
What
as
did
such.
COVID tell us?
Exactly.
We need to
Exactly.
deal with our
Yeah,
own
so-
needs as close to home as possible.
So it'll be interesting to see where that lands, because the 3A agricultural groups are certainly giving them input, what they, Christian farmers and national farmers.
It'd be interesting with
See
the
where that lands.
surplus houses where they don't have to fill out a planning application. That's what, if they go down that road. So it's right now, someone can come in and get a building permit to put, a secondary dwelling, as long as it meets certain criteria on their home without triggering a planning act. If they go down that road, then, additional surplus properties like farmers would be able to build, I guess, going back to the days where you had your working hand. Now you'll be able to have another one of those there, whether that's for your children or for someone, but it's all on the same parcel. Seems more conducive to saving the ag land, going that approach versus the severance approach, But it's interesting that they're going at both, yeah. Maybe they're going at both because only one can stick. Once they
You
go
never
through
know,
the
once they get
consultation.
Yeah, you never know.
Hard to sell a compound with 3 houses as opposed to a separate lot.
It is
So you could have, I can see both sides of that.
from an economy of
Yeah.
scale perspective, for sure.
And certainly, for some farms to stay on the land, having a lot to sell is enabling them to do that, to
Yeah.
continue farming. So it is a tricky, it's a double-edged sword. So it'd be interesting to see where the shakes it.
One more thing, as I mentioned, we are now members of the Peterborough Portland Chamber of Commerce. They're coming to present to the Business Advisory Committee on May 9th at 6 p.m. And I've also requested them to come to council to discuss benefits of being a member, to come and do a presentation at an upcoming meeting. And that's it for me.
That's it for you.
Yes.
General business, does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring forward? Councillor Bill?
Just very over comment on 2 things. So first one is, again, it's your report of April 19th regarding rural leaf yard people pickup. Thank you.
You're welcome. You are
Certainly
welcome.
Well, I could very canvas of her, and I realized the county focuses only on the villages, but it is nice to see that you're able to work with your team and expand and beyond that. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And the second one, my name there, it's already around pickleball. So it looks like the high school have an organization or
They do.
league running. The current club has got something. Are we still thinking of having an outdoor game?
Yeah, so the outdoor court, so I met with the Norwood Curling Club, just to chat, just to make sure that there was clear lines of communication and we're not duplicating efforts. The thought process of all of those groups and including the township is the one outside is accessible all the time. So if a, you know, a husband, wife, or, you know, a couple of friends want to go on a Saturday morning and play pickleball, where the other ones are going to be specific days of the week, kind of league play. So I don't really, like, I think what we're offering is actually to be able to go practice anytime they want, practice outside, play outside, and then they'll go and participate in the league play. We won't have a league. It's just gonna be an outdoor court, no different than the kids from the hoops program practice on the outdoor basketball court.
Is the future outdoor one, is it bookable or is it just first come, first served?
First come, first served.
Okay, no, that's good.
I have something to bring forward, though, council, you're all invited to the Canadian Trails, or Trans-Canada Trails. It's on May 6th at 11 o'clock. It's their 10th anniversary. How would you explain where it is?
We'll send the location out, and all the details to the council via email.
Okay. I was told to bring that forward. Right, everybody? Anything else under general business? We'll move into closed session then. We're gonna pause. Move into bylaws, Candace.
We have a tax rate bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt estimates for the sums required during the year 2023 for municipal purposes and to establish rates of taxation to be levied during the year 2023 and to provide for penalty and interest. Be read a first, second, and third time in that numbered bylaw 2023-22.
Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor Byrd. All in favor? That motion's carried.
Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood held April 25th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time in numbered bylaw 2023-23.
Moved by Councillor Hodges, second by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That motion's carried.
And a motion to adjourn, sir.
I don't want to.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion for adjournment from Deputy Mayor Byrd and second by Councillor Ward. All in favor? That motion's carried.